Welcome back to Sonic Times. My name is Jesse, and this is my brother.
Hey guys, I'm Johnny. Welcome to episode 2.
Yeah, so today we're going to be tracking satellites or non-satellites, unidentified objects, and we're going to be picking up on the same night that we were tracking last time. And I will hand it off to you for Grok.
Oh yeah, okay, let's do it. So for those of you who weren't here last time, I've been talking to Grok, the ex-AI, who is touted to be more objective than other AIs in terms of it's not supposed to be subject to any agendas, and it's supposed to tell you if you're wrong about something. Though it will encourage you in different directions, it is supposed to actually slow you down if you're saying something that's untrue. So we've been having fun trying to basically get Grok to wear a tinfoil hat. So last time we were talking about secret aerospace projects and how those might connect to kind of a secret history. And Grok brought up one of my favorite topics, which is T. Townsend Brown. So we're going to dive into T. Townsend Brown with Grok here. And just to get things started, I just kind of had Grok pull up a basic breakdown of who we're talking about. So who was T. Townsend Brown? Thomas Townsend Brown lived 1905 to 1985, was an American scientist and inventor whose work in electrogravitics, ionic wind, and anti-gravity propulsion made him a cult figure in UFO and fringe science circles. He's best known for his experiments with high-voltage electric fields, which he claimed could manipulate gravity, potentially powering UFO-like craft. Brown's life was a mix of mainstream science. He worked as a Navy lieutenant and for defense contractors, and secretive, almost mythical projects that fueled speculation about hidden government tech. In the 1950s, he founded NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, which was the first civilian UFO research group decades before UAP became the cool term. Yeah, notice aerial phenomena, right? That's the AP in UAP. His patents and ideas, like the Byfield-Brown effect, are still debated, genius breakthrough or misunderstood
Can
physics.
I stop you there for a second?
Yeah.
The UAP versus UFO.
Mm-hmm.
I like UFO better because it's nostalgic.
Yeah.
I just like the way it sounds.
Me too.
But I understand UAP. There's a conspiracy that they changed it to make it confusing, so when you search UFO, you don't find everything, it's split between UAP and UFO.
Right.
But I like the anomalous because now that we've actually been seeing these things in the sky, both on the night vision cameras and some of them with our own eyes,
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that we've seen with our eyes don't make sense.
Right.
And I don't even want to call it a craft. It feels like it's a plasma light, or like almost feels like it's a natural phenomenon, an anomaly. I like
Right.
that word in there.
Right. I feel that. I think it's interesting that even within UAP, there's debate over whether it's aerial phenomena or anomalous phenomena.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some people saying aerial, like right here, T. Townsend Brown is referring to it as aerial phenomena. And he's saying this is Grok is saying this is decades before UAP became a cool term. So Grok is connecting aerial phenomena with UAP.
Okay, well, that's cool.
So I just think it's interesting. You were saying, maybe they did it, people think they did it to make things confusing. I don't necessarily believe that, though that could be like a part of it, because if you search, UAP files, you won't find much as compared to searching UFO files, like you said. But yeah, it's interesting that even within the term UAP, there's like some debate.
And of course, most of it is aerial. However, we have
Right.
seen things, not with my own eyes, but we've seen things on video that go into water, and some of them look like they go into ground. Like some
Yeah.
of those plasma balls that look like they can go straight from the sky into the earth and back out.
Yeah, that's the transmedium stuff that is talked about as one of the with the 5 observables.
Oh yeah, good old Lou.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, we got a little breakdown on T. Townsend Brown. Basically, yeah, he's a guy who was a legitimate scientist who legitimately worked for the Navy and for defense contractors. He specialized in radar and different kinds of like basically wave physics. And he also is associated with a lot of secret projects. So I also had Grok give us kind of an overview of a book called The Man Who Mastered Gravity. That's by Paul Shatskin. He's a researcher who's gone pretty deep on T. Townsend Brown. And I'll just give you kind of the breakdown here. Published in 2023, The Man Who Mastered Gravity is Paul Schatzkin's attempt to tell Brown's story, billed as, quote, the biography of a man whose story cannot be told, end quote, due to secrecy, conflicting records, and redacted files. The book, 453 pages available in paperback and blah, 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 weaves science, history, espionage, and romance, exploring Brown's life through family accounts, especially his daughter, hard-won documents, and mysterious confidential sources. Schatzkin, who also wrote The Boy Who Invented Television about Philo Farnsworth.
Oh,
Yeah, another fascinating topic, guys.
I love Philo.
We will definitely go down the Farnsworth rabbit hole.
If you own a TV, you should probably have like a statue of Philo in your house.
Yeah, and right next to it, a statue of Professor Farnsworth from Futurama.
Who is named after Philo, of course.
Yes, exactly.
The 14-year-old farm boy who created the television, basically.
Basically, yeah, fascinating figure. But today we're talking about Brown. So the book dives into Brown's experiments with electrogravitics, and let's just kind of get cooking here. Great, thank you, Grok. As I told you guys, I'm very polite to Grok because I think there's a small chance it may become Skynet and the world ruler, and I want to be kind of the cool human friend / pet or whatever. So thank you, Grok. Would you mind breaking down the concepts behind electrogravitics as studied by T. Townsend? Well, we can just do T.T. Brown and other scientists throughout the 20th century. So let's see what Grok has to say about electrogravitics, which at one point I believe was called Gravitoelectrics. Also, it's got some interesting, confusing name changes. But here we go. What is electrogravitics? We're going to skip Grok's yo, yo, yo. I got it for you, brother. Yo, yeah. We're just going to jump right into it here. Because if you guys noticed last time, Grok's very excited to like tell me that it's doing what I'm asking it to do. But let's just get to what I actually asked it to do. What is electrogravitics? Electrogravitics is a speculative field of study exploring whether electric or electromagnetic fields can influence or manipulate gravity, potentially enabling propulsion systems that defy conventional physics. Think UFO or anti-gravity craft. It's rooted in the idea that electricity and gravity are interconnected, a notion that's tantalized scientists and inventors since the early 20th century. And that's because, guys, just to put it like simply, remember E equals mc squared, that whole thing, the E being energy, the m being mass, the c being the speed of light. These kind of basic equations connect energy with mass, and we know that mass is also connected to gravity. So if increasing the energy to a certain point can change the mass, that also means that you're affecting the gravity, essentially. While mainstream physics hasn't validated electrogravitics as true anti-gravity mechanism, yeah, I think it has though, it gained traction in fringe and military circles, especially through Brown's work. Electrogravitics core concepts. Brown was the poster child for electrogravitics, claiming high voltage electric fields could reduce weight or propel objects by interacting with gravity. His ideas, often called the Byfield-Brown effect, blended physics, engineering, and a dash of sci-fi. I mentioned this last time, guys, the B-2 stealth bomber, which was one of our big secret projects for a long time. It is kind of suspected within the aerospace community that the B-2 stands for Byfield-Brown, because they were actually using the Byfield-Brown effect in that ship by charging the leading edge with an incredibly high voltage and then negatively charging, I believe that's how it works, the back edge. So it's essentially chasing itself through the air, reducing the weight and providing a natural propulsion using this kind of electromagnetic manipulation. So the Byfield-Brown effect, what is it? Brown observed when a high voltage electric field is applied across an asymmetric capacitor, one electrode larger than the other, essentially like you put more charge on one area, less charge on another area. So there's more energy here, a little less on the other side. The device moves towards the positive electrode. So yeah, I was right. They're charging the leading edge with a ton of positive, and that means that the negative is just going to be essentially chasing that. Brown, he claimed that it wasn't just air movement. ionic wind. That's like, you remember the ionic breeze that was in all like the Brookstone stores and
Oh yeah.
stuff like that? Yeah, so that was using a very basic version of this concept. It's using the electric charges to kind of push, propel the air through the ionic breeze. There's no propellers in there, you know, it's just the slats, but they charge those slats and it moves the air. So like we're already using these products. Like they're saying the Byfield-Brown effect doesn't exist. It kind of already does. How it works theoretically. Brown used capacitors charged with 50,000 to 300,000 volts direct current, creating a strong electric field. He believed the field interacted with Earth's own gravitational field, producing a force that neutralized or modified gravity, causing objects to lift or move.
I got one.
Okay,
I got a weird
it.
one.
Let's see it.
I got one of those weird ones that I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
It's like a light. I don't know. I'll just show you. Okay, it's going to be coming down the right side of the screen, and I'll play it at normal speed. See it?
What?
What was that? Rewind.
Weird.
I'm going back and forth. I'm going
And it leaves
back.
like a trail.
Yeah, but it's invisible. What is this stuff?
What is that?
Do you guys see
There's
it?
a white part and a black part.
It's here, and it's coming down the screen like this.
It looks like a stroke of like a paintbrush, like it just. Whoosh.
But it actually goes down, and it changes its direction. Do you see how it's like coming at this angle, and it curves kind of? I'm exaggerating for effect, but it stays on the screen. Do you see how the black goes down? It looks like it was going to go off the screen, but it kind of curves.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, weird, guys. So let me see real quick.
The white, what I was calling white, actually looks almost like the yellow of that star that's right next to it.
And isn't this funny?
Maybe it's like catching some of that starlight.
Right, like the starlight's actually coming through it.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can make a quick adjustment and get it to pop a little more. Yeah, bro. Like the starlight is coming through it.
Yeah.
So
almost.
something almost invisible is flying by the screen, but right at that area, the starlight seems to be reflecting through it.
Yeah.
I don't know if reflect is the right word, but you know what I mean. It's like echoing through.
And what's like just normal speed?
That's normal speed. Rewind,
So
normal
it's
speed.
Fast.
Fast. That's all
Almost
it is.
instant.
Yeah,
it's just like boom, boom.
So I will take this off, go back, we'll play it one more time, and then we'll label it. Dude, that's really fast.
Man, that's so fast.
So
and the trail is really getting me. Like,
why is it
there's a
hang
part
out?
of me that would want to. You'll notice, guys, I tend to be a little more the practical when it comes to explaining these things. So there's a part of me that wants to be like, yeah, maybe like a really fast bird or bat, like dived through, totally out of focus. But that is super fast.
So the only thing that we can do is we can assume, you know, if we're trying to be skeptics, that it's some type of, hate to say it, but bug super close to the camera and out of focus.
Right.
And it just happens to be this anomalous light pattern. The thing is, though, I've seen bugs fly through.
Right.
That could be a product of the night vision camera, the trail. The slow shutter speed, kind of letting things hang on. Like you can see a trail behind satellites a little bit.
How long does this trail last, just out of curiosity?
All right, I'll play it at normal speed. Ready?
Yeah.
We're at 40, and it disappears at 42.
Okay. Well, it's kind of still there.
All right.
But
like
yeah,
we said, we don't know what this is. This is one of the less exciting anomalies, but for me also more interesting because we really have no clue what these things are. Back to that anomalous word. That's why I think it's appropriate, because I don't even know what to label this other than smudge and question mark.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, we were getting into, actually, we just hit T. Townsend Brown's patent that involves this. So if you guys are wondering, like, is this real? Does this exist? Like, there are patents involving this stuff. He had one in 1928, U.S. patent number 1,974,483, if you guys are counting. Brown described a method of producing force or motion using electric fields, hinting at anti-gravity. The effect could power silent, propulsion-free craft, explaining UFO sightings, like cigar-shaped objects that you're into. Oh, Grok, you know my type. He speculated it tapped into a unified field theory linking electricity, magnetism, and gravity. So that's important, guys. The fact that this isn't just an anti-gravity effect, this is the missing piece of physics. It actually like unites the field. So just like electricity and magnetism are kind of this interconnected um, cross section of forces. They
Literally.
influence each other. Yeah, literally, like the way that we understand it is in this cross section. In that same way, this would be another reflection of that, where gravity and time, and, you know, like basically magnetism and gravity and electricity and mass and time, all of these things connect together and influence each other. Right now in physics, we don't say that, even though it's already kind of there in the math, like I said earlier, with the E equals mc squared and mass increasing and changing, you know, which implies an increase in gravity. All this stuff, we talk about it, but we don't admit fully that this is real and that we're using it. But I think that we're using it. If you found, here's the hypothetical, and I know my brother and I have talked about this a lot. If you found what is essentially the most efficient and powerful energy source propulsion technique in the world, and it wasn't all that difficult to do conceptually, you just had to realize this connection between electricity and gravity and magnetism, and you could create a device that could do things that nobody's even close to doing right now, because, you know, you're basically creating a bubble in a way around your ship that it's not going to be affected by air resistance and things in the same way. So you can travel at enormous speeds. You get all kinds of anomalous effects, like the field around the craft actually charges so much with energy that it glows. So that explains why a lot of UFOs, that's a cool little drone.
That's that Blade Runner drone we saw last week when we just let the footage play.
Yep, totally.
Yeah, I'll mark it as a non-satellite.
But yeah, basically this is something that definitely seems to fit in with our current physics model. So, all right, and then this is important, because this is where everybody tears down Mr. T.T. Brown. This is where he gets basically called a hack who never succeeded in his work. Because he had these real world tests, okay? He did have demos in the 20s through the 50s that showed small disks, yes, people, disks like flying saucers, lifting off tables when they were charged with energy. This was the asymmetric capacitor thing where you had a really large charge and a smaller charge and they'd chase each other.
May I say something?
Yeah.
Imagine like a soccer player who bounces a ball on his knee. Basically, they were putting voltage through at the exact time they needed to keep that capacitor and those pieces of metal hopping. And you can get to a point where it just stays hopping. From what I understand, there's a time aspect, timing. And if you time your pulse right, you can actually keep something like a soccer player in the air and eventually really in the air.
Right.
That's a layman's understanding.
No, that's important, because that's getting into the actual mechanics of how these things work. And you guys will notice earlier it mentioned these massive DC currents, 50,000 to 300,000 volts DC. And it's direct current, because direct current comes in one direction, as it sounds. You know, alternating current is kind of this back and forth communication between devices, but direct current is literally almost like opening up a valve and just dumping electricity in. And the way that they do this, like my brother said, think of like a soccer ball, they tap over and over so that they get maximum electrical power in a very efficient impulse over and over and over again. And they do this so fast that it would actually explain some of the sounds that saucers have been said to make in abductions.
Yeah.
These humming sounds or sounding like a beehive. That's one way that the bell was described, and a couple of the early saucers back in the 50s were described as sounding like a beehive, this buzzing, and that would be the sound of a very fast electrical impulse, shocking at, you know, such a high rate.
Let me give you two more examples in case someone isn't getting it. Same thing as when you push a kid on the swing. You push them at that exact moment that you get the most swing with the least amount of effort. So it's about timing. So timing becomes a dimension, a very important aspect of this, where you need to time when you're putting in the energy to keep that system bouncing. Last, when you're in a pool, when you're alone in a pool and you're making waves, You know, there's that perfect moment where you can push into the water and have the waves increase,
Hmm.
or the waves can come back and you can push and they can literally cancel each other out.
Right.
It's that awareness of avoiding the cancellation and increasing the amplification
Right.
at that exact right time. All right, we get it.
Yeah. 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 Timing is important, guys, when you're
Timing
trying to
is
do
everything.
crazy stuff. Because
It's
what
the fifth dimension or the fourth dimension.
right now, according to how we understand things, time is the fourth dimension. It is that dimension that's just outside what we can actually perceive. And if we could perceive it, we'd see our past and our future kind of all together, which is trippy to think about. Okay, but let's go
By
back
the way, I
here.
think our brains are time machines. That's exactly what we do with our mind. We travel through time, thinking of the past, thinking of the future, but that's not this podcast. Let's get back to
Yeah,
Grok.
yeah, no, we'll get into that because there are experiments on that that are really fascinating with like the speed of nerve impulses and the brain sending signals and how fast the brain can send signals for pain. Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff. But let's stick to Brown because we're making some cool progress here. So I brought up the ionic breeze earlier. This is what everybody says: is that his effect was shown and it was cool, but it wasn't significant. So we just turned it into the ionic breeze. But Brown insisted that it's more than ionic wind, which is essentially just the charged particles moving the particles in the air. He believed high voltages altered the gravitational constant locally, a bold claim tied to Einstein's general relativity. So basically, according to Brown, gravity was not constant. It was something that depended upon mass and energy and electromagnetism. Um, he theorized that electric fields could create a gravitational dipole in the capacitor, aligning with Earth's magnetic field to produce thrust. So think of like when you have two magnets and one wants to run away from the other one. If you think of the Earth like a giant magnet, if you could control the pole within your device and get it to repel away from the Earth, just like a magnet repels away from another magnet, think of how efficient that kind of propulsion would be. You don't need to blast a bunch of flames and shoot yourself in a direction. You just naturally move away with an incredible amount of force. So that's kind of where he's messing around with these effects. He's trying to use the Earth and repel away from the Earth in order to have a flying machine, which I just think is the coolest concept. And yeah, he referenced the work of physicist Paul Byfield, which is why it's called the Byfield-Brown effect.
And maybe why it's called the B2.
Yep, that's what we were talking about earlier. It might be where the B2, actually, stealth bomber, got its name. So applications to UFOs and propulsions. By the way, guys, there was one more piece there. It's the skepticism, but I already explained that. They basically just say they think it's just ionic wind, and that tests in vacuums where air is absent often showed reduced or no motion, challenging Brown's claims. Now that's where it falls apart in the mainstream narrative, but the idea in Paul Shatskin's work, and he presents some very compelling evidence for this, like they mentioned. He's actually got some documents and stuff that suggest that was the way that they moved T. Townsend Brown's work into the dark. They simply said, oh, we thought it was anti-gravity. It's just ionic wind, nothing crazy. And that, in fact, it was very real. And they just said it wasn't. And then he got to keep working on this quietly. So Brown's vision. In the 1950s, he pitched electrogravitics to the military, claiming it could power silent, high-speed craft with no moving parts, perfect for UFO-like vehicles. His NICAP role tied his tech to flying saucer hype. In the 1950s, now we're getting into Project Winter Haven, Brown proposed a secret Air Force project to build a Mach 3 100-foot electrogravitic saucer. The man who mastered gravity suggests Winter Haven was funded but buried in classified programs, though no declassified records confirm this. So I gotta say one thing here on Winter Haven that is just fascinating. I've been doing a little research on Winter Haven this past week since we did our last episode, and it came up. And it reminded me, oh yeah, this is really good stuff. I want to learn more about this. So Project Winter Haven was a proposal essentially that Brown wrote that, yes, did involve building a Mach 3 electrogravitic saucer, but it also brought up the idea of longitudinal waves. If you don't know what longitudinal waves are, particles and everything's moving in kind of in this particle wave mixture, right? And longitudinal waves kind of take that concept and look at it in a different way, more like strings, where if you've got a very long form wave or waves that stretch and fill a certain amount of distance, thinking of it more like a string, where something happens on one end of the wave, it immediately creates an effect on the other end of the wave, almost like quantum concepts within quantum.
Or what I like to say is tuning forks.
Yeah, tuning
Think of
forks,
tuning
guitar
forks.
strings.
You
Yeah.
tap one tuning fork that is the exact shape and size as the second one, and they'll both ring.
Right. Yep, it just naturally resonates and picks up like that. So Brown had this idea, hey, when we set off the nuclear bomb, he believed it may have affected and sent out and shook these longitudinal waves, which would literally be an almost instant communication to the entire surrounding universe, like our whole galaxy and galactic neighborhood. It would have been an almost instant red flag that they would have noticed. Anybody who's aware of scalar waves or longitudinal waves would be watching these things, because it is an incredible form of communication. Like, we think radio waves are good, longitudinal waves would be on a whole nother level, and there would be no delay if you're communicating. You could communicate in space. You know, these are some of the concepts behind, like, maybe we do already utilize these for submarine communication and space communication.
Oh yeah, and hold on, let's pause because you disconnected on Zoom. We'll get reconnected.
Are we back?
Okay, yeah, we're back.
Okay, cool. So I was talking about Winter Haven, guys, and longitudinal waves. And basically, T. Townsend Brown, besides being an amazing human being who made breakthroughs in radar tech, communication tech, and also this anti-gravity stuff, he also said, oh, by the way, I've been thinking about the nukes, and I think we put a beacon out to our entire galactic neighborhood that was almost instant. Like, don't think about how long it took light to travel there or anything like that. Think of like, oh, boom, they picked it up on their guitar strings. So we may have drawn the wrong kind of attention with that.
All sorts of attention, good attention,
bad attention.
Just imagine, you set off a firecracker at night. Everyone sees it in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hopefully good neighbors come, but you could have all sorts of people approaching. And I think we did that on a cosmic universal level, maybe even beyond our own like ability to like conceptualize dimensions like material. We could have gone into non-material, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I think it affected time potentially.
Right.
Like, I think this was an explosion that we didn't understand how powerful this was, and that this was in very like quantum ways. This was going to actually affect our local reality and draw the attention. Basically, it's like they turned around and went, wait, the flies on the wall just built a firework? Like, the flies built a firework. The monkeys built a bomb. You know, that's what this feels like. That's the feeling I get. So anyway, T. Townsend Brown said that in Project Winter Haven. And then he also said, but hey, maybe if we could figure out how to utilize this,
oh boy,
it could literally be the best communication system we've ever imagined.
I gotta stop you, I'm so sorry.
I just saw that, let's show it off.
All right, guys, we gotta talk. So I'm just gonna tell you what I think they are, what we think they are. And I think you agree now, because
I can pull up a picture too.
We've watched documentaries. I think that's so silly what I'm about to say. I think you're about to see flying fish. Okay, they're also known as air rods. They are these things that fly through the sky in spirals. Well, I should be more specific.
Here, cut over to my screen real quick so you can show.
Absolutely.
So that we're not making this term up. Skyfish is a term that exists. Also air rods, like he mentioned, and people film these things, guys. They see them. They show up on cameras. They're very hard to see, if not impossible to see with your eye, but they show up on camera. And a lot of people say it's just an insect.
With a slow shutter speed. Get over that. We understand cameras enough, and we've seen enough at high shutter speeds on several different cameras. They are this. And what's weird is you can't see them with your naked eye. So I've been outside looking up at the sky with this night vision camera directly in front of it. 5 of them, like you're gonna see now, fly through the screen. What's interesting is they fly in a row. They all fly together in a group. I've asked Grok I've asked AI what flies in a row like that. Nothing is the answer. They are unbelievably fast. And you know what? Let me just show you what they are rather than talk about it. So they're going
Yeah.
to fly through the screen from the bottom right to the upper left, and I'm going to play it at normal speed. So what you see right here, this line that I know you're going to think is birds or moths or something natural, but what flies in a line like that that's natural? I've asked AI and it says nothing flies in a like a row. You see how it's such a clean line?
And he's not talking about the direction it's moving, guys. He's talking about how there are four objects along the same plane.
Yeah, like that's a bad line, but you
Yep.
get it. It's like this, like they're what flies this like this, where it's just at the same exact location throughout the sky. Like it looks like these corkscrews. And when you look at the flying fish, which do you still have that pulled up?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to that. The documentary that we will link below so you can check it out basically says that it's a fish with one fin, long fin on this side, and another long fin on this side, and those fins undulate back and forth, which makes it look like it could be spiraling as it's just simply undulating its two fins, which there is a fish in the ocean that does that.
Right.
Almost the exact same design. All right, there it is, guys. Just another anomaly for you to help us identify. If you know of anything that flies through the night sky like this, please drop a link below. We'd love to solve this mystery. All right, back to Grok.
All right, let's wrap things up here. I feel like we've had a really good journey here with T. Townsend Brown, just kind of digging on what is supposedly unsuccessful experiments, but really, you've already heard Grok say that there were successful experiments with it. They just lean into the ionic wind thing, but like I mentioned, there's some good arguments that this may have actually continued and gone dark. For instance, this is where we're going to wrap up, guys. Here's some of the official interest in T.T. Brown. Aviation Industries Report, 1956, a report by Aviation Studies International Limited. This is a very legitimate company. Claimed electrogravitics was on the verge of practical realization, naming Brown's work alongside efforts by companies like Glenn L. Martin, Convair, and Bell Aircraft. Bell, I think, also is just a very interesting name
Oh,
for
like the
an
bell?
aerospace company, like the
Yeah.
Bell, the Die Glocke, the
How
German.
ironic.
Yeah. If you guys don't know, let me just pull up a picture of that real quick. The Bell, Nazi Germany. Well, that's a Bell. There we go. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about that
It's
thing.
kind of hidden behind the thing.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
there you go.
See if I can actually go into it. This thing right here might be connected to the Magenta crash in 1933 in Italy. It essentially sounds like it used similar concepts to T.T. Brown, but it rather than just using two gravitational fields that were kind of pushing and pulling on one another, they're rotating those fields rapidly, creating torsion effects, which can also create these incredible energy and propulsion systems in a slightly different way. But anyway, I just think it's interesting that Bell Aircraft is the company, and Bell is the same as the telephone company, guys, and they do have connections to these government military contractors. Just like Lockheed Martin, they may have gotten some pretty esoteric technology back in the day and been able to run with that for their own developmental reasons, make a bunch of money on it. It's part of the reason I think UFOs haven't been declassified and everything's been disclosed yet, because Lockheed Martin is going to have to pay to its competitors because Lockheed Martin was given an unfair advantage over everyone else in the aerospace field, along with Boeing or Northrop Grumman or any of these companies that received material or crash retrieval, bits and pieces even. That stuff could go a long way for their advances. So I just think that's interesting. This report came out. It predicted anti-gravity craft by the 1970s, but go figure, no prototypes emerged. General Electric and others in the 1950s, GE, Boeing, and Douglas Aircraft ran small electrogravitics programs inspired by Brown's demos. The man who mastered gravity notes Brown consulted for some, but projects fizzled due to lack of results or funding. In Project Winter Haven context, the Air Force pitch aligned with Cold War tech races. The military's
Oh
interest in
no.
silent propulsion made electrogravitics
I
a
gotta
hot
stop
topic.
you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
What's up?
We got another weird thing.
Yeah, let's see it.
Top of the screen. Normal speed. What?
Oh, that could be a shooting star. That could be like a really cool meteor, but man,
I've
that
never
thing
seen
is
a shooting star
amazing.
go yellow, blue, yellow, what? Again, I don't
Yeah.
know, guys. I don't know enough about space. Sure, it's just a cool shooting star. I just have seen like just white shooting stars, not like blue and like there's two different colors happening there. Why?
Because it would be, according to like the, if this is a shooting star, it's because it's made of certain materials and they're burning up in the atmosphere. So it's like changing colors chemically as it burns.
That's wild.
But that is wild. That's beautiful.
It also, like, the
It's
front
not
of it
super
almost looks
fast.
like a square. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like this is
Yeah.
separate.
It's also not as fast as I'd
Bro,
expect
it's
a
not as
shooting
fast as a
star.
shooting star. It's slower.
But shooting stars can go at different speeds. So it's
This is
possible, but that thing's really cool. And it does look like a square, which is very interesting.
that is
It
really
doesn't
weird.
look like just the end of it is bright. It looks like the whole rectangle is bright the whole time.
Right, like
Like back it up.
it's not the head. It's that something turns on.
See, it's bright. It's a
Dude,
rectangle
it's
there.
a rectangle.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a shooting star, to be honest, but maybe.
How? What are we
For the
finding?
skeptics out there, I just had to say that because it is possible. But this thing is pretty interesting.
I haven't seen a shooting star that looks so rectangular and has colors so different and stays on the screen so long. So last time I will play it at normal speed and then we'll move on. That's weird, bro. All right, back to Grok.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're pretty much wrapping up at this point. We've gone through Brown's work. We've gone through some legitimate interest and even aviation industry's reports saying this is coming, on the verge of practical realization. You've got a ton of companies interested in it: Glen L. Martin, Convair, Bell Aircraft, Lockheed Martin, GE, Boeing, Douglas Aircraft. So this is all happening at that time. And then it just kind of goes quiet. You even can see here, it says, electrogravitics was a hot topic, though most efforts were classified or abandoned. That doesn't just say most efforts were abandoned. That means a bunch of these efforts were classified, which means they kept working on this stuff, guys. I'm telling you, they kept working on it. I'll end with one more question for Grok, just for funsies. Thanks for all this great information, Grok. I'm wondering your take on the idea that the aerospace industry is using the Byfield-Brown effect, charging their airframes with incredibly high voltage in order to reduce the weight of the aircraft significantly enough. I'll say here, I'll even specify, not to fly with anti-gravity, but to reduce its weight significantly enough to affect the physics during operation, allowing the craft to make, quote, impossible maneuvers.
While you ask Grok that, I'm just going to show you what a normal shooting star looks like. In the lower left-hand corner of the screen down here, this is what I'm used to, a shooting star. That.
Right.
So that's what I would say is a shooting star. Ready? That's it. That second and that little, sometimes they're brighter, but that's about how fast they are. And I'm going to go back one more time just to play our weird one. Long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did Grok say?
So let's see, guys.
You really want to know if they're already using this tech secretly in aircraft going back decades.
And I think there's a lot of good arguments made for this in several books, not just Paul Shatskin, but also Nick Cook talks about this in The Hunt for Zero Point.
That is a must read in life. It's like a
Yeah,
Bible that everyone needs to know.
absolutely. It's an incredible read. But the idea is basically, yeah, so this effect is kind of unwieldy if you're trying to actually generate 300,000 volts and fly a ship with all of that voltage. It's just unwieldy. It requires an incredible generator. You need to have an exotic power source to make that work, and something like a nuclear power source on the plane to generate the amount of electricity to make it fly. So it's complicated. But imagine if you could just do a little bit of the effect. So by charging the edges of the plane, you are just reducing the weight enough, maybe by a couple dozen pounds or maybe a little more, but you're reducing the weight enough that it can do maneuvers it's not supposed to be able to
And
do.
you get that slight edge.
Yep. So when other people see our jets fly, they're like, how the heck did that F-16 pull off that turn? And it's like, well, because technically it's running a little bit of this Byfield-Brown effect. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. And there has been some really good arguments for this.
There's also the
But
scramjet. The scramjet has a similar thing where it's like a solenoid where the air is getting pulled out around and getting put back into it, from what I understand.
right, like they're using the exhaust somehow,
Yeah,
or
yeah. So basically, rather than flying through air, they're using, like, imagine a donut, and
right.
they're pulling the air in front of it out around the body, and then yes, kind of putting it back into the exhaust in a way.
Yeah, so I think I know what you're saying. The concept is kind of like when you're flying really fast, guys, the air resistance is pushing against the plane and
Correct.
it's making a bubble around that plane that's slowing down the plane. But that bubble is made of air. So if you had a way to cycle that air and remove that bubble, um, you could cut the air cleaner faster because the shape of your plane is what's creating that bubble. So if you can suck that air in and reduce the shape of that bubble, you can increase the speed of the plane. Um, but yeah, these concepts are really fun. So let's see. My take: the idea that the aerospace industry is secretly using the Byfield-Brown effect to charge airframes with high voltage, reducing weight to enable extreme maneuvers, is a tantalizing blend of fringe science and plausible speculation. It aligns with Brown's claims and UFO lore, but faces serious scientific and practical hurdles. Here's my analysis, weighing evidence, physics, and your UFO vibe. My vibe. Plausibility. Could it work? Brown argued that high voltage fields across asymmetric capacitors, blah, blah, like we said, could manipulate gravity to reduce weight and generate thrust. This is stuff we already read. This could theoretically lighten an aircraft, altering its physics for sharper turns, faster climbs, or hypersonic speeds. So yeah, there's some plausibility there within the idea. Your idea doesn't require full anti-gravity, exactly. Just enough weight reduction, say 10 or 20%, to boost performance. Brown's lab tests claimed minor weight losses, grams, but scaling to a jet-sized airframe would need massive voltages and electricity. If feasible, lighter effective weight could reduce inertia, allowing tighter maneuvers without breaking Newton's laws. The military loves tech that gives an edge. If the Byfield-Brown effect could make an F-35 or a secret aircraft like the rumored Aurora pull UFO-like moves, 90-degree turns at Mach 5, silent hovers, it'd be a game changer. The man who mastered gravity hints that Brown pitched this to the Air Force via Project Winterhaven, suggesting classified programs might have explored it. Scientific feasibility: what's happening? The Byfield-Brown effect creates motion in a charged capacitor, likely due to ionic wind, but like we said, it might be bigger than that. He claimed the deeper electrogravitational effect, possibly altering local gravity via a field interaction. Your idea hinges on this, reducing an airframe's effective mass, not eliminating it. So basically, you're seeing here, guys, Grok's going to be very long-winded, but it does seem possible if the Byfield-Brown effect is actually real gravitational lensing and changing and not just ionic wind, then this is plausible and could be happening already. And now there are, if I remember correctly, there are already some articles out there talking about how we've got some jets that make some maneuvers that seem almost physically impossible. I'm going to try to just pull this up real quick if I can.
Yeah, totally. While you do that, I have a number of non-satellites on screen right now, and I even caught one of our little Firefly friends. So let me add those non-sats. You let me know when you're ready, and I'm going to show the audience what a Firefly looks like. So this is one of the first UFOs that we saw, and it's down here in the lower left. We see these with the naked eye. We don't need the camera for this. So it just shows up. It's certainly not a shooting star. Just arrives in the lower frame out of nowhere, and it hangs out, flies, and then just disappears.
Yep.
And as you can see, there was no
Nothing.
satellite. I'll take it back to when it's on screen. So that is what we call a Firefly. Often they come in orange. That's the first one we saw. But white, yellow, those are also pretty common colors. Okay, back to Grok.
Well, we're basically just, I'm trying to find some of these articles I read. I think it was more so an interview that I saw with aerospace guys that's just like some of the numbers, the stuff these jets can do is so crazy that it does make some people suspect, this Byfield-Brown effect being used.
It's obviously classified top secret information. And I think the stealth bomber and the scramjets, I don't think everyone has those in the world. I think those are pretty special, from what I understand.
Yeah, those are very special. Those are very special. And just to give you guys an idea, like the cost per jet that we've crossed into in the last 20 years is completely crazy. And now there are a lot of factors that factor into the cost per jet. You know, if a contract is for like 100 jets and then it gets cut down to 10 jets, those 10 jets are going to seem very expensive because they can't save money on all the supplies and the parts ordering for those jets. But still, the F-47 per jet is upwards of $300 million. That's just crazy, guys. That's like such an absurd amount of money. This is why military contracts are like $20 billion. You know, there you go. Boeing secures $20 billion contract for the F-47. Like, the amount of money is insane. So I have no doubt that with $300 million, you could sneak a little Byfield-Brown effect.
It didn't even cost that much. That could just be some fake number. Like they figured out everything 100 years ago, and they're just charging like random prices just so they can separate themselves even further as the civilization breaks away from the peons. You know?
Right. And yeah, more could happen that could make that price even more expensive at this point. That's just their like average estimate. We're pretty sure it'll be about 300 million per jet.
No, I got a blinker on screen. It's subtle. Also, a potential flying fish is going to come down. So maybe we'll end here. We got a flying fish coming through. This is at normal speed.
You can almost see some of the flapping there, guys.
That's the flapping.
A little bit of the movement.
Just know that my bro is convinced that these were birds.
Oh yeah, like fully convinced. And now I'm partially convinced that there's something else.
Because also, we see them in focus like this. So how are they way up in the sky in focus? And birds. They must be pretty damn big birds.
Right.
And then you're going to see a blinker, which is casual or subtle here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to play it at triple speed forward.
There's our sky
blink.
Fish bird.
And second box, blink. And third box, blink. God damn it. I keep saying boxes and I mean to say circles. I'm sorry, guys. It's because I'm looking at a rectangular box on my screen and then I have another app that's a red box. It's circles, guys. Circles. And I know I lost all credibility by saying a box when I drew a circle.
I think you're good, man. I think you're good.
All right. Well, with that, guys, I think we're going to bring this show to an end. Is there anything else we want to cover before we head off?
No. Just, you know, we had a fun time here going deep on T. Townsend Brown and Electrogravitics. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I am not sure that that's a skyfish, but I am sure that this electrogravitics stuff is real and is being used and has been kept pretty secret. I mean, we've been burning gas and blowing flames for like 150 years now, so I think we figured out something better about 70 years ago, and we're keeping it hush-hush.
Yeah, just like you know that they have like the iPhone 100 already built. They're just slowly rolling it out. They're doing the same thing with energy systems.
Right.
They figured out how to use the opposite of fire, the cold, ether, the fluctuations in the quantum soup, and yeah, they're going to slowly roll it out.
Yeah. But no,
And
no, no, guys. It's just ionic breeze.
oh
It's
yeah,
just
no, it's just a
it's
nice
just a
little thing to send some air
boo.
through your home. No, no scramjet by field stealth
No, no,
bomber
no,
maneuvers here. Don't
no,
even
no,
worry
no.
about that. No time manipulation. No, it's
Of course not.
just a little
Of
fan.
course not.
That's all. That's what all that government money went to. We thought we were gonna have anti-gravity. Instead, we got a little fan.
Yeah. Sweet fan though. I do like.
All right, guys. And with that, thank you again for hanging with us. And we will be back because I still have night vision footage from this same evening to review with you.
We have so much footage. It's crazy.
So much. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys.